A crime is committed. The suspect has fled. Witnesses are unreliable, scared, or non-existent. The trail seems cold before it even begins. For centuries, solving crimes relied on confessions and eyewitness accounts, both notoriously flawed human elements. But today, when a perpetrator leaves a scene, they leave behind something else, something objective. They leave behind the silent witness. Today, we are diving deep into the role of science in criminal investigations. We are not talking about the magic you see on TV shows where they solve a murder in 42 minutes. We're talking about the real-world application of biology, chemistry, and physics to matters of law. We're going to look at how 3 different scientific disciplines cracked 3 legendary cases, and how science doesn't just catch the guilty, it frees the innocent. Let's go. If we are talking forensics, we have to start with the undisputed king, DNA profiling. It is the single most significant advancement in criminal history. Before the mid-80s, blood types could narrow down a suspect pool to perhaps 10% of the population. But DNA, it can narrow it down to one person in billions. To understand its power, we have to go back to where it all started. Leicestershire, England, in the 1980s. 2 teenage girls, Linda Mann and Dawn Ashworth, were brutally murdered 3 years apart in nearby villages. The community was terrified. Police had a suspect who had confessed to one of the murders, but they wanted to be sure. They approached a local geneticist, Dr. Alec Jeffreys, who had just discovered a technique to identify unique genetic markers. They gave him biological samples from the crime scenes and a sample from their suspect. And this is where science proved its worth immediately. The DNA showed that the same man committed both murders, but it wasn't the suspect who confessed. Science proved his confession was false and likely saved an innocent man from life in prison. But now the police had no suspect. So they undertook a massive genetic dragnet, asking over 5,000 local men to voluntarily provide blood samples. One man, a local baker named Colin Pitchfork, was terrified. He convinced a friend to give blood in his place, using a fake ID to his friend in a dimly lit corner of the bakery. The ruse worked for a while, until the friend bragged about it at a pub. Police were tipped off. Pitchfork was arrested, and his real DNA was a perfect match to the crime scenes. In 1988, Colin Pitchfork became the first murderer in history convicted using DNA profiling. The doors had opened, and there was no going back. DNA tells us who was there. But sometimes, there's no sign of violence on the body. The victim just looks asleep. That's where forensic toxicology comes in. These scientists combine chemistry and physiology to hunt for poisons, drugs, and alcohol in body. Scientists in a lab conducting experiments with various chemical substances, illustrating their work on bodied tissues, detailed background. And sometimes, they have to hunt the most dangerous type of criminal, the one hiding in plain sight. Dr. Shipman was a beloved, mild-mannered general practitioner in Britain. But in the late 90s, people noticed that an unusual number of his elderly patients were dying suddenly, and they were all leaving Shipman large sums of money in their wills. Shipman, as their doctor, was signing their death certificates, listing natural causes like old age. When police finally investigated, they had to take the grim step of exhuming several former patients. Shipman was arrogant. He thought that because the bodies were buried, the evidence was gone. He was wrong. Toxicologists analyzed muscle tissue preserves, drugs longer than blood, and found massive lethal concentrations of diamorphine, essentially pharmaceutical heroin. The science provided objective proof that contradicted Shipman's medical records. The trustworthy doctor was actually one of history's most prolific serial killers. He was convicted of 15 murders, but it's estimated he may have killed over 200 people. Without toxicology, he would have gotten away with it forever. We live in a physical world, but we leave a digital footprint everywhere we go. Digital forensics is the newest frontier, analyzing data from phones, computers, and the cloud to establish timelines, locations, and intent. Sometimes, it's the clash between old-school criminals and new-school technology that solves the case. For decades, the BTK Killer terrorized Kansas. He was elusive, careful, and he loved to taunt the police and media with letters. Then, he went dormant. When he resurfaced in 2004, he wanted to restart his communication. He asked police in a letter if a floppy disk could be traced. The police, wanting to catch him, publicly lied and said, "No, it's safe." So BTK sent a floppy disk to a TV station with a message on it. He thought he had wiped the disk clean. But digital forensic experts recovered a deleted Microsoft Word document. They looked at the metadata, the data about the data. The metadata showed the document was last modified by a user named Dennis, and it had been saved on a computer registered to a local Lutheran church. Police went to the church's website, found the church council president was named Dennis Rader, drove to his house, and saw a vehicle matching one seen near the floppy disk drop-off. Game over. A decades-long reign of terror ended because a serial killer didn't understand how Microsoft Word worked. Science is powerful, but it's not magic. It's a tool, and it's important to remember that science evolves. Techniques that were once gold standard, like bite mark analysis, used to convict people like Ted Bundy, are now largely considered unreliable junk science. True science is always testing itself, trying to prove itself wrong so it can get better. The role of science in investigation is to provide a cold, hard baseline of truth in an otherwise emotional and chaotic process. It ensures that justice isn't just a guess, it's a certainty. What area of forensic science fascinates you the most? Are you more interested in the biological side or the digital side? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime and criminology content. Thanks for watching.